They don't chase you when you walk away. They watch, and that's silence. It's not surrender, it's calculation. Narcissists don't rage when you leave, not always. The real revenge is quiet, cold, patient. It comes after the storm, when you think you're safe, when your guard drops, when the hurt is just starting to heal. You might not even notice at first. A strange message from someone you no longer speak to. A rumor that smells like your past. A new relationship that looks eerily like yours but curated to perfection. And yet, something in your chest tightens. You don't know why. You left the chaos behind. You stopped dancing to the tune of their moods, their games, their shifting stories. You dared to choose peace over war. That's what they can't stand. Not that you're gone, but that you survived them. That you walked away and didn't look back. And so, the revenge begins. Not loud, not obvious. It hides in manipulation dressed as indifference. It feeds off your healing, trying to pull you back into a game you no longer want to play. You think you're paranoid. You question your own clarity. You ask, why now? Because narcissists don't get even, they get strategic. Especially the ones that wear calm like a mask. The ones who never screamed but left you questioning your worth. Who smiled while breaking you down, piece by invisible piece. And when you stop reacting, when you walk away for real, their ego takes the hit. Not their heart, not their soul, their ego. And that's the one thing they protect above all else. So they wait, watch, and strike not at you but at your peace, your name, your truth. And maybe no one else sees it. Maybe everyone thinks they've changed, that you are the problem, that they found someone better, but deep down you feel it. A whisper in your bones, a knowing that something isn't done, that even when it looks over, the story is still moving. And you're not crazy for feeling it. In this video, we're not just unpacking the hidden revenge of narcissists. After you walk away, we're telling the truth that rarely gets spoken out loud. The truth you feel in your gut but have never had words for, because it's not about them anymore. It's about you finally understanding what you walked away from and why that matters more than ever. So, take a breath. Let yourself feel what you've been pushing down. This is your space, your story. No one here will gaslight your pain. You're not too sensitive. You're not making it up. You're remembering. And that's power. If you've ever walked away from someone who couldn't love you but refused to let you go, you're in the right place. And if any part of you still wonders if they're thinking about you, trust me, they are. But not for the reasons you think. Like what you're hearing. Hit that subscribe button. Tap the like so this truth reaches someone else who needs it. And stay close, we're just getting started. They don't come after your body. They come after your narrative. When you leave a narcissist, they don't just lose control over you, they lose the version of themselves that they curated through your eyes. You were their mirror. You reflected back to them the fantasy they couldn't hold on their own. And when you shattered that reflection by walking away, it wasn't just abandonment. It was exposure. That's why their revenge isn't about confrontation. It's about reconstruction. They rewrite the story. They become the victim. Suddenly, you're the one who was cold, unstable, dramatic. You left them without reason. You hurt them. You never gave them a chance. And somehow, they say it all with just enough softness to make others believe it. They craft a version of you that's unrecognizable and show it to the world like a masterpiece. And it stings. Not just because people believe them, but because there's a part of you that still wants to defend yourself, still wants to explain, still wants to be seen as good, kind, honest. And that part of you, the part that still craves justice, is where they win. Because now you're back in the dance, trying to clarify what never needed explaining, trying to clean up the mess they planted in your name. And they know that. They know you care. They know you have a conscience. They know your empathy, the very thing they once fed on, can be used as a leash even after you've cut the cord. So they wait for signs of life, a reaction, a post, a slip, anything to prove that you still care, that you're still bleeding. And when they don't get it, that's when it turns. They find new ways to touch you without ever reaching out. They show up in places they know you'll hear about. They post things meant for your eyes but pretend they're not. And sometimes, they even come back gentle, remorseful, curious, just to see if the door is still unlocked. And if it is, they walk back in like nothing happened. Not to stay, not to build anything real, but to remind you that they still can. Because for them, power isn't in love, it's in access. And when you finally change the locks emotionally, energetically, spiritually, they feel it. That's when the mask slips. That's when the real revenge starts to show. But it doesn't look like rage. It looks like indifference. It looks like them thriving publicly while you're still piecing yourself back together. It looks like them pretending they've moved on while quietly watching your every step. They don't want you back. They want you back under control. And when they can't have that, when they realize your healing has made you immune to their chaos, they do something more cruel than you expect. They become everything you begged them to be, just not with you. Suddenly they're romantic, generous, stable, posting pictures with someone new, quoting wisdom they once mocked, doing things they never did while you were pleading for them to grow. And it hurts, not because you want them back, but because it makes you question whether you were the problem all along, whether they were capable, and you just weren't enough. But here's the truth no one tells you. They're not healed. They're rehearsed. This new version, it's not love. It's performance. It's the final act in their revenge play. See? I was never the villain, but if you look closely, you'll see the cracks. The new supply slowly starts to dim. The cycle begins again. Because a narcissist doesn't change. They just shift the stage. And you're free now, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Even if part of you still aches. Even if your nervous system is still stuck in the echo of their manipulation. You walked away. That was the loudest act of love you've ever performed, not for them, but for you. Their revenge might be calculated, but your healing is sacred, and no amount of performance can outshine someone who chooses their peace again and again. It's strange, isn't it? How someone can hurt you so deeply, then turn around and act like you disappeared without explanation. Like they were just standing there, open arms, heart wide, while you slipped out the back door in silence. They leave out the nights you cried quietly beside them while they scrolled through their phone. They don't mention the way you stopped expressing your needs because it always turned into a fight. Or how you apologized for your own intuition over and over again just to keep the peace. They never talk about how small you became, because that's the part that ruins their script. The part that proves they weren't the victim, they were the storm. But here's the thing about narcissists. They never remember the pain they cause, only the power they lose. And when you walk away, you become a wound to their ego, not their heart. Their love isn't a bond, it's a possession. And no one likes losing what they think they own. So their revenge starts with rewriting the ending. You didn't leave because they broke your spirit. You left because you were unstable, too emotional, never satisfied. You were too much. They feed this version of you to anyone who'll listen. Friends, family, their new partner. Sometimes even your friends if they think there's a chance. And when those lies come back to you, they don't hit your ears. They hit your chest, hard, because you were never perfect, but you were honest. And they twist that honesty until it becomes ammunition. It's not about truth. It's about control of your reputation, your memory, your peace. And sometimes, the worst part isn't the revenge. It's the silence, the haunting stillness that comes after you cut contact. No apology, no ownership, just a vacuum, like you were never there. But that silence is not peace. It's strategy. Because if they can't control you directly, they'll infect the spaces around you, the stories told in rooms you can't enter, the subtle sabotage, the invitations that stop coming, the people who suddenly act strange around you but won't tell you why, and it makes you question yourself. Again, was I really that hard to love? Did I ask for too much? Was it all in my head? But deep down, you already know the answers. You were just trying to survive in a place where survival required self-abandonment. You traded your voice for safety, and they fed off that silence like oxygen. But now you're remembering, now you're reclaiming. And that's what terrifies them the most, not that you left, but that you're finally seeing clearly. That you're not angry anymore, not desperate, not waiting. You're done. And being done, really done, is something a narcissist can't understand. Because in their world, everything is still about them. Even your healing. They think your silence is strategy. They think your peace is performance. They believe, deep down, you'll come back. Because people always come back when they're still bleeding, but not you. Not this time. Your wounds are closing. Your voice is steady. And maybe it still hurts. Maybe there are nights when it hits you all over again, but you're not living in their story anymore. You're writing your own, and they hate that. They hate that you no longer need their validation. That their version of you doesn't hold power anymore. That even if the world believes their lies, you don't. And that's the real revenge, not what they do to you, but what they can't do anymore. They can't reach you, they can't shape you, they can't break you. And eventually, the people who matter will see. They'll feel the truth in your calm, in your boundaries, in your healing. Because real peace leaves a mark that can't be faked, even by someone who's mastered the art of pretending. They don't just miss your presence, they miss your vulnerability. That soft, raw part of you that still believed they could change. The part that excused the silence, explained away the blame, made room for their moods. You were their emotional oxygen. Your belief in them kept their ego inflated. Your forgiveness reset the game every time they lost control. But now, Now, you don't flinch when they're mentioned. Now, your silence doesn't mean fear, it means power. They feel it like static, a shift in the current. And even if they're surrounded by people, even if their phone is full, they feel the emptiness where your empathy used to be. Because no one mirrors them like you did. No one absorbs them like you did. You weren't just a partner, you were their emotional life support. So when you unplugged, they didn't just lose a relationship, they lost their reflection. And that's why they retaliate the way they do, not through outright cruelty, but through calculated reminders that they still exist, still matter, still have access. They show up in the smallest ways. A like on an old post, a message that says, "Just checking in," a song posted that you used to cry to in the car, little taps on the glass not to reconnect, but to test the seal, to see if you're still open, still vulnerable, still waiting. But you don't bite, not anymore, because now you know it was never love, it was possession. And the moment you stopped allowing yourself to be owned, they stopped pretending to care. They say you changed, that you switched up, that you turned cold, and in a way you did. You stopped explaining yourself, you stopped softening your truth to protect their ego. You stopped playing the villain in a story they wrote to avoid their own reflection. That's what they call cold. But in reality, it's warmth directed inward finally, toward yourself, toward your own body, your own soul, your own still beating heart that survived things no one will ever fully understand. You stopped breaking yourself just to keep the peace. And they can't stand that, because to a narcissist, peace is provocation, silence is insult, growth is betrayal. And when you rise without them, it forces them to sit with the version of themselves that you no longer protect, and they will do everything they can to avoid that reflection. So they twist the ending. Again, you were never loyal. You gave up. You were too damaged to love. Not because they believe it, but because they need someone to. Because if the world sees you as powerful, free, clear, then someone might start asking questions. Someone might start connecting dots. And worst of all, someone might finally see them. So they move quickly. They overcompensate. Grand gestures, public displays. They treat the new person like royalty, but it's not love, it's image repair. They need the world to see that they are the one who was hurt, that they are thriving, that you were the storm. But deep down, they know the truth. They know who really broke first, who begged for connection, who waited for change that never came. And no matter how many stories they tell, no matter how many new partners they parade around, they will always remember one thing they can't rewrite. You saw them. You saw what was behind the charm, behind the calm voice, behind the logic and the blame and the sob stories. You saw the emptiness they hide behind confidence, and you chose yourself anyway. That's what they'll never forgive you for. Not leaving, but surviving. You didn't just walk away, you chose not to look back. And that's what pierced them. Not your anger, not your heartbreak, your silence, your absence, your refusal to play their game one more time. Because narcissists feed on response. Positive, negative, it doesn't matter. If you're reacting, they're still relevant, still inside you, still alive in your nervous system. But when you don't answer their message, when you don't correct the rumors, when you don't post something vague they can twist into meaning, they panic, quietly, desperately. Behind the scenes, they'll never admit that, of course. They'll smirk, shrug, say you were never that important, but that smirk is hollow, that shrug is smoke, because you know them too well. And they hate that you can see through their performance even now. That's the irony of it all, isn't it? You were the one who loved them deeply, and yet you're the one they try to erase. But they can't, because even as they smear your name, mimic your healing, and weaponize your past, they know who carried the truth, who held the weight, who swallowed their silence while screaming inside. And now that you've found your voice, their tricks don't land the same. That text they send, you don't flinch. That old memory they try to revive, it doesn't burn. That story they tell about you, it's so far from who you are now, it almost sounds like fiction, because it is. They built a version of you to cope with the version of them they refuse to face. And that's what this revenge really is, a distraction from their shame, their emptiness, their inability to form anything real. Because someone who truly moves on doesn't try to burn the bridge behind them. They bless it. They walk away without turning it into ashes. But narcissists don't walk, they haunt. And you feel that haunting sometimes. Late at night, when a song hits too close, when you see their name in a comment thread, when someone brings them up out of nowhere, like a ghost you never invited back in. But it's different now, because you're different now. You don't let it spiral. You don't reach for meaning. You don't wonder if you made it all up. You know the games they play. You know the mask they wear. And most of all, you know the cost of staying the slow erosion of your light. The way your laughter became cautious. The way you used to rehearse your feelings before speaking, just to avoid being misunderstood. You felt that silence before. That cold war of confusion. That ache of being right next to someone who refuses to see you. So when people say they seem better now, you don't explain, you don't argue, you don't pull out your history like evidence in a trial that was rigged from the start. You smile and you walk on because you don't need everyone to understand anymore. You just need you to remember. They weren't your home, they were the fire. And you crawled out of the wreckage with shaking hands and a heart still beating. That's not weakness. That's resurrection. Let them perform. Let them pretend. You're not their mirror anymore. You're not their echo chamber. You're not their unfinished business. You're free. And that freedom, that's what drives them wild. Because it means their version of you no longer matters. Because you're not living in reaction. You're living in truth. There's a quiet kind of power in walking away and staying gone. Not out of spite. Not out of bitterness. But out of love, real love. For yourself. For the parts of you that bent and twisted and dimmed just to keep a false peace alive. That's the kind of love that narcissists will never understand, because it requires something they run from: accountability, growth, surrender. Not the fake kind that gets posted online, but the real kind where you sit with your mess, your mistakes, your pain, and change. And they don't change. They just shift roles. But you stopped playing. You left the theater mid-act, with no applause, no validation, no one waiting outside to say you were right. And still you left. That's what makes you powerful. Not that you exposed them, but that you didn't need to. Because peace speaks louder than revenge. Stillness speaks louder than stories. And healing, real healing, is the one thing they'll never be able to fake as well as you live it. So if you're still grieving, still questioning, still rebuilding, that's okay. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're becoming. They may have tried to rewrite your ending, but they will never own your beginning. You get to start again, not as a survivor of them, but as a protector of you. If this spoke to something quiet inside you, something you thought no one could name, you're not alone. Stay close. Subscribe if you haven't yet, not for the algorithm, but for yourself, so you can keep hearing the things you were never supposed to forget. Tap like if this reached something real. Share it with someone who might be stuck in the same silence you once lived in. You made it out, and that's not the end. That's the beginning.